Hello, welcome. This is Anime Zone. Today I will be describing why I love the disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya. Now, I have a strong love for this movie as you're about to hear in this video, and I hope I am able to get out how I feel in this video. I have a lot to say, so I don't know how long this video is gonna be. I'm gonna try to keep it under 30 minutes though. But yeah, let's get into it. First off, though, before I get to talk about the movie, I need to first talk about the show. Now, I think the original show was great. If I had to rate it, I would give it like a B plus. Um, I enjoyed so much out of it, and I enjoyed the whole concept of just this guy being in high school and then running into all these supernatural elements with him being the most normal guy out there and having to cope with this god who is just a bitch sometimes and doesn't really care about what other people feel, but is so likable at the same time. And I have a lot of I have a lot of love for the show, but it's not something I would ever consider one of my favorites in any kind of terms because it was good. It was definitely good, but the 8 episodes ones where it was 8 episodes of the same things, that kind of like threw me off when I was watching the second season. But it still did recover for that because the rest of it was still pretty good. But that was a low point of the season where I think if that wasn't there, or if that was just like 2 episodes, maybe three, it would have been better. It would have benefited the story and just the production and just made me love the show even more. But the first time I watched it, it definitely left a bad taste in my mouth. But this movie redeems all of that, and it's such a great movie, and I'm very excited to talk about it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through the movie, summarize it, talk about all the scenes I love, why I love them, and things like that. First off, I want to talk about some of the reasons why this movie works, and one of them is the serious tone that it takes. Now, I'm a big fan of comedy, and I love it whenever it's around, and slice of life, like most of the time, always has comedy, and Haruhi is one of those that comedy is a big part of it. But this movie takes a different approach. It does have comedic moments in it, but this is more serious, and I really love that because 8 times out of 10, I would take something serious rather than a comedy. There are exceptions to this, but I just love seriousness in storytelling, and comedies do serve their purpose. And the original show is great because of its comedy and how it did all of its stories and storylines, and it could get serious when it wanted to, especially with Kyon's monologues or his internal thoughts. But this movie just takes it to a whole other level, and I love that. And what works so well is that in the original show, none of the characters develop much because they have quirks that they need to fill, and they don't receive any character development, at least not in the traditional sense. Nagato does receive some that you can tell in the episode about hacking, where they played against the other guys and it was like a Battlestar Galactica reference. But those were subtle developments, very subtle. It never really changed how they acted or their core dynamics. And I didn't know how much of a good thing that was until I watched this movie because there's this feeling of this isn't right when you watch this movie. It's the feeling of these characters shouldn't be acting like this. This is not what I'm used to. Kyon, of course, is his usual self, pessimistic and always complaining about everything. But even it shows in this movie that how much he values all these quirks and how much he values his friends and not just their bizarreness, how crazy everything is. But let's actually get into summarizing this movie. The movie starts with Kyon, like always, like the show most of the times did, because he's the main character, and it starts with his usual monologues. This monologue being about how cold it is. Side note, I really do love all the background music that Haruhi has, especially the main theme, the dun 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 dun. There's an edited one in this one, but it's just as good. And I love when it's playing in the in the background with his monologue going on. Every time they did in the show, I loved it, and here they do it to begin it, and it establishes a sense of familiarity, like we're just in for more fun, and that's definitely what I expected when I went into this. I was pleasantly surprised that wasn't the case though, but we'll get to that. So then it moves on to showing him going to school. He's heading towards the club room and he walks in, but no one's there. The only person that's there is Nagato. Here they have no interaction. They don't really have any dialogue going back and forth. And this is perfect because it shows the ending scene and how it contrasts to that. But regardless, he goes over there and he goes beside the heater and just puts his face in it because it's super cold, and it cuts to the intro. And I was not expecting the movie to have an intro, but I really did like it. It was a nice little transition. After the intro, nothing of interest really happens. Well, nothing worth mentioning. But before I go and start explaining what happens past the 17-minute prologue of the movie, I want to I want to talk a little about why it was a perfect prologue. Now, what do I mean? This movie is long, and it's almost 3 hours long. I will mention this again in the ending, but I think this really helps the movie. And the fact that the prologue of the movie is 17 minutes long, almost the length of an episode, a 20 something episode, really helps in establishing the mood that they want you to feel. They want you to feel this familiarity. You know, it's just another day with the gang. It's just another day with Kyon being grumpy about Haruhi's shit. And it really helps you with bringing down your guard because you don't expect it. You don't expect what's coming next. And the shift to seriousness really helps when with using this prologue, using the 17 minutes where you have the usual banters, and then it kind of just disappears in the middle section, as you will see. After the prologue, Kyon wakes up and he is unaware of what just happened. It is the next day and he's going to school. At this point, both us and him don't know what's going on. We know something happened because Kyon warned us when he transitioned from the prologue to the beginning of the actual middle section, or what you can call the beginning of the actual movie. We get our first clue when we see that everybody's acting strange. So my first thought was that maybe this was in the past or something. But Kyon, in his narration, made sound like what was about to happen was a living hell, or was something more terrible than just a simple time traveler stuck in the past. So I kind of scratched that off. And after that, I kind of stopped guessing, and I was just like, I'll let the movie tell me at its own pace and however it wants to do it. And I was in. At this point, I'm in. The mystery is that we have is what Kyon doesn't know. We don't know, and we just want to find out. And the way it does it is great because we establish it through the dialogue between him and his friend who had a date. Now he doesn't, and he's sick. Now a lot of people are sick. Why are they missing? This should have been a red flag, and it isn't for Kyon at first, but it is for us because obviously, right? Kyon, it takes him a little while before he realizes that, oh shit, something is going on. But when he really finds out that something's going on, because the flu already like ticked him off and everybody acting strange already ticked him off, but when Asakura shows back up, and that was the moment he was like, oh, okay, something is definitely not right here, because the crazy bitch is back. And when I saw this, I was like, oh my god, no, I do not want to see this person, not right now. But it kind of reassures us that she's not the crazy person that she was before. She seems normal, and I say that very lightly because as we see in the end of the movie, that she's not right in her head even in this way. She still has a screws loose no matter where she's at, but it doesn't matter. Right now, I want to say how I love the way they did her reintroduction. The way that the camera did the shots, the way that Kyon reacted, the music, the fact that we hear her voice first but we don't see her face, and we see Kyon's reaction, and then when we hear that voice we're like, oh shit, it's her, which you already have an idea of who it is as soon as she walked in, but like when you hear her voice that just confirms it. And I really loved how they sold his despair. He runs outside and he starts frantically looking for anything familiar. And he's looking around. The class where Koizumi is supposed to be is missing. And he just looks like a madman. He's going crazy. He he starts passing by a hallway, and that's where he sees Miss Asahina. And here in front of her, he's just crazy. He looks like a stalker. He's asking her if he knows who he is, if she remembers him, and then he brings up that very sensitive area in her chest that that he discovered long ago in one of the episodes, and this just makes her want to punch him. And it is the most adorablest thing to see her try and punch him, but it not really. It's being barely a punch, and then her friend steps in and does it for her. At this point, he's heading to the club room though, because Miss Asahina doesn't remember him. The class is missing where Kozumin is supposed to be at, so the club room is the only thing left and the only place for him to go. So he goes there, and again he finds Nagato. She's the only one there, and he walks in. He says hey, and he asks her if she knows him, and she says yes, but she's referring to a different time. He's relieved at first, but then he starts to ask her about more of the supernatural elements of it, and she doesn't seem to know about that. But he keeps pressing because he's desperate at this point. He just wants someone to remember, anyone. And it just hits him that none of them do, that things are different right now and he doesn't know why, and it's completely out of his control of what happened. At this point, I was there with Kyon. I really wanted him to find someone that would remember him. I didn't know where the story was going, but I knew that if you analyze it and the storytelling structure, that it wasn't going to happen right now. So it kind of hurt me even more knowing that it's not going to happen right now, but wanting it just as much as Kyon wants it. And to see his despair as he just sits there in silence is great. The movie does a great job to show Kyon's despair throughout this whole scene. This whole moment where he's just here and he's desperate, and it shows in his face that he wants to find someone. It doesn't stop there though. He goes home and tries to talk to a cat, grasping at any straws at this point. He looks like a crazy person to everybody else. The next day, he gives up. He just goes to the club room. He's still in his despair, and he just sits there, and it's silence until he finally decides to start a conversation. And I love the shy Nagato because it's such a different Nagato. Any different version of a character I would love, but she definitely was the most different one, and I love this version of her. So damn adorable anytime he would talk, so shy. I don't know if it's her shyness or I'm getting the impression that she has a crush on him. It could be that she's just shy, but from later scenes and inviting him to her house, I'm going to guess that she has a crush on him. Could be wrong though, or this version of Nagato has a crush on him. I also want to quickly mention how I love how Kyon thinks about random things, sometimes even in moments like this, like wondering if Nagato was trying to hide a story that she wrote and how he'd be interested in reading it, because he is the MC and we hear all of his thoughts, and if his thoughts were always focused on what was going on, that wouldn't always be too realistic now, would it? But I love that he just thinks about the random things even in despair like this. But anyways, let's get back to the summarization of the movie. Kyon gets up and starts to search on the place where they have the books over there. They have them all stacked up. And here's when the first bit of hope shows up. He finds the book that Nagato first used when she first told him that she was an alien, where she left him a letter or just a note saying to meet up at a certain area. And here Nagato uses it again to leave him another message and a way out. I love how he quickly he goes in and he grabs the book and he starts looking through the pages and finds the letter. When he asked this Nagato whether she wrote that, she says it is her handwriting, but she doesn't remember writing it. And his reaction is so priceless, where he almost cries, but holds it back in. This is his hope. This is his way out, and he's so relieved. So Nagato left him a message, but the message is kinda not so clear. You must find the keys. And there's a time limit to it, right? I think it was 3 days. So it's the next day, and he's talking to his friend. And they ask him why he was acting crazy, right? Like the regular thing. And there's where one of his friends mentions that Haruhi, that girl that he knew from way back then, his middle school. And I love the scene where he realizes it and he like kind of like it looks like he's gonna start a fight, and how his friend just goes along with it, and the way he reacted and saying the way he like thanked him afterwards, even though he like pushed him and kind of just manhandled him, and his relief of finding out that Haruhi is in this version of the world, and he heads there straight away, and it continues to this beautiful scene that I will discuss right now. So he sees Haruhi coming out. Haruhi is with Koizumi, and they're both walking outside, and he confronts her. He says, "Hey," right? And she is not happy that some random guys just goes up to her and just called her name. And I love this banter that they have. I love this serious, aggressive Haruhi. Kyon tries to use his knowledge. At first he tries and fails because Haruhi kicks him. But of course, when he mentions that he is John Smith, or I think it was John Smith, this causes Haruhi to trust him because no one else knew of that. And I love the way she reacted, almost fainting and falling back. This scene in general, I don't know how to describe it well, but I just really liked it, and I really did enjoy it. And it really did help emphasize that this is a different person. Well, she's still the same person. This is just what would have happened if she didn't get her godlike powers, or she didn't meet all the other people that she met. Okay, side note, I love Haruhi with long hair. She looks great. I love the look, I love the design, and I love the darker uniform. But I'm just a fan of black, and just long hair, yeah, that looks great. But anyways, and this is another great point that I wanna mention the movie does. It uses plot points from the show to enhance its own story and to add on it, and just to use it for its own plot, and I think that's great. It shows how well the writing is, and it just shows it's a movie taking advantage of what the show left behind, everything that the show did, and it will take advantage more of that as we go on later on in the movie. But for now, let's get back to the scene. After some fun banter between the three of them, I'm gonna be skipping to when Haruhi decides to help him, and she brings all of them together. And this just shows that Haruhi, in whatever world they are, always can bring these very different people together for whatever reason, either to just keep an eye on her or just to like physically grab them from what they're doing and just drag them into a club room, and it was great to watch. At this point, she kind of made things more lively, because things were getting depressing in Kyon's side, with him not having any hope, with him no one remembering him, and with his despair. So having Haruhi here and being her usual self, her happy self, and just pushing people around for what she wants to do is just great. I also really like that this movie made Haruhi actually be in the loop of things. I always did wonder how Haruhi would act if she knew everything, and of course she doesn't have powers in this one. If she had godlike powers, that would affect everything, and that can't happen in the main story. This is the main story, but you know what I mean. It can't happen for the story to continue, for the way that stories are told in this show to continue. But I'm glad that we got a little view of that here. We got to see how she would react to all of these, and how she finds all of these things really cool, and how she believes it very easily, and how she calls him John instead of instead of his actual name, because she thinks it sounds way better. After bringing them all together, the program starts, and it says if he wants to do it, and he does. And this is where the crazy Haruhi supernatural things begin, and I love every second of it. I'm here for it. So let's continue describing. Kyon wakes up 3 years ago, right? When he first met Haruhi and he helped her do all those signs in the high school. 3 years ago, when he time traveled later on, when that was the first time him and Miss Asahina time traveled. And again, the movie brings back later events and adds more context to it. And it's just great how it can do this. It's just great how the story just allows this to happen, and it just keeps doing this throughout this story. And I liked it the first time, and I loved it by this time. And by the third time it happens, I'm just like, yeah, this is just great writing. This is how you do good writing. But anyways, let's continue. So he goes to the park and he sees his past self passed out in Miss Hasahina's lap. And after saying that he's jealous of himself, he sees where the part where the older Hasahina shows up and talks to the younger him. And then after their conversation's over, he goes and catches up to where the older Miss Asahina is to ask her for help. And it's revealed that she had to set all of this up so that this version of him could come here and they could help and bring everything back together. But the only way they could do that is to go to Nagato and ask her for help. From here on, we always see the older Miss Asahina with guilt on her face. We know why, right? She knows who did it, and she knows that what's gonna happen to Kyon a few moments later. But she has to do it, because it's the only way for things to go back to the way they are. And I love that. I love that detail that you see it the first time and you don't really know why. But it catches your eye. But by the second time when you're watching, you're like, oh, okay, I see moving. Kyon and the older Miss Asahina reach to Nagato's apartment at the time. And he goes up there and she explains the situation, that Haruhi's powers were stolen and used to change the world to how it is. But not everything. It's just change it from a certain point and change some memories. That's why some memories are the same. Regardless, she gives him a way to solve it by first a needle and then turn it into a gun before revealing who the person who did it is. And at this point, we don't get to hear it. We don't get to hear who it is. One would say it's kind of obvious. My first thought though was Asakura, because damn, I do not trust her in anything. But the second one would be Nagato, because that's the only one that makes sense. Haruhi is not a show that would bring in villains. Usually they have to deal with supernatural events happening, but there are no actual villains in this show. So I didn't expect a villain to show up, and I didn't expect it to be some random character that we've never seen before, or a very minor character, because the level of writing that it's been showing so far would have disappointed me if they went that route, but they didn't, and I'm so glad. But anyways, they go back to the time where the world was changed around midnight, and it shows that it was Nagato. It's revealed, right? The camera shows her coming into the screen, and we see the silhouette, and then we just get to see Nagato, and we see her change the world, and then we see her be reborn into the new Nagato. Now Kyon has to walk. He has to go over there and walk in front of her, and I love this scene. I would say this is like my second favorite scene. This whole monologue that he has with himself. It's so close to my first, but not there. My favorite scene is just too great. But this is amazing. I love the way that his dialogue goes in. That his dialogue begins then, and we just go into this whole exploration of his thoughts and what he thinks of everything. He thinks that this isn't an error that comes up in her in the future. It's just her emotions, that she must be tired of all of Haruhi's nonsense, all of her shit, right? Tired of always protecting Kyon, and just tired of all the thing that she has to do that Kyon doesn't even know about. He thinks how she probably wants emotions, even though she's never had them. And of course she would, right? Why wouldn't she? He thinks how she should have been allowed to yell, to say, just leave me alone, to cry. I love the imagery that's shown here. I love pretty much everything they show over here. Through the great dialogue and the great monologue, it shows her looking at the sky from many different angles, and the sky changes as well, right? And it just gives you a feeling of longing, showing her get up from reading and walking to pick up the hat and putting it on. Everybody else is having fun. They're not paying attention to her, and she's just there. Kyon isn't paying attention to her, and she just has it on. And I love the visual imagery where she's alone in the corner. She barely has any colors. The color is just saturated. It's so great the way Kyoto did it, the way they illustrated it. Kyon's thought quickly shifts from Nagato and how she must be feeling to him and how he feels. Why did she leave him the option to change it back? Because she knew he would make the right choice. And then that's the question. What is the right choice? What does Kyon want? What does Kyon think of everything? Of all that nonsense? Isn't this world better? How does he feel about Haruhi's shenanigans? I'm sick of them, he says. But is he really? This is the part when it shows him in his classroom, and his reflection begins to begins to speak to him, begins to ask him questions, saying things like, was it fun? He's just a normal guy, and he's been through so much because of Haruhi. He's been through so much because he got dragged into this, and why? He's a normal guy. He doesn't need to be in this. He doesn't want to be in this. How a normal life is all he wanted. But if that's the case, why he pressed the enter key? Why did he do it? Everything's normal here. Haruhi's just a stuck-up high school girl. Asahina is a moe character. And Nagato was just another bookworm. A shy girl that if you probably told a dumb joke would laugh. So why did he do it? Why does he not want this to be the world? Why does he want to change it back? Was it fun? He asked him. This is when his reflection begins to step on Kyon. And Kyon doesn't answer, but he keeps pressuring him. How do you feel about it? Was it fun? And Kyon finally answered with, yes, it was fun. Like, who wouldn't think it was fun? That he loved every minute of it. Then he pushes his reflection back and the reflection disappears. He has his resolve again. I love all the imagery it shows here, with the gifts overwhelming him, with his reflection talking to him, with the classroom showing Nagato, all of the characters, the way he rejected it, the music swelling, the way he pushed it back, and then it shows him on Nagato's side, but he walks away from her. He walks away from her, and he goes to Haruhi's side, symbolizing the world he chooses, not the normal one. The one with all of Haruhi's crazy antics. The one with all the crazy espers going around with the aliens and with the time travelers. The music is swelling and we return. He's back to facing Nagato, the shy Nagato. He comments on how she looks cuter with glasses. I'm sorry, how she looks cuter without glasses. Before he gets ready to shoot her. He's ready to change everything back to how it was, but that's when Asakura shows up and stabs him. The bitch is back, and she is still crazy. Kyon falls to the ground and he's in pain. He keeps saying it hurts, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. And it shows the shy Nagato's reaction and her in terror as Asakura takes out the knife and throws the blood right in front of her face, saying that she would protect her, that nothing bad is gonna happen to her when she's around. She gets close to Kyon to finish him off, but as she's about to stab him, Nagato steps in and stops him. Not the shy Nagato, the normal Nagato, the one that we all know and love. Kyon is surprised, and what surprises him even more is that there's now two Asahinas, the younger one and the older one. The older one apologizing because she said she knew this was gonna happen, saying sorry, and the younger one just crying out, saying that he can't die, do not die. As he's passing out, a different version of him starts to tell him that it's okay, they'll take care of everything, and that it hurt for him too. He doesn't know what's going on, but he passes out, and then he wakes up at the hospital, not knowing whether everything's back to normal or not. But after talking to Koizumi for a little while and seeing how Haruhi reacted to when he woke up, it really did confirm to him that yes, this is back to my normal. I got it back, and he feels relieved. And finally, the mood switches. We had a serious mood for throughout, mostly since the prologue ended. And here we switch back to the fun antics, and I love it, and I missed it, and I'm glad that it's back. Seeing Haruhi's happy-go-lucky self just warmed my heart at that moment, especially how she says, "Wake me up, warn me before you wake up," or something like that, and it's just so funny. It's everything is back how it should be. And here is the best scene of the movie for me. Kyon is in the rooftop. He's by himself. He's not allowed to leave the hospital yet, so he's in the rooftop, staring at the city. It's cold. He's wearing his jacket. The camera cuts to Nagato's feet. She arrived. Kyon realizes that she's there and he turns and greets her like he always does, until she says that she remembers everything. Here he realizes that since she knows, he might as well ask her, right? Ask her why she didn't tell him. Nagato responds by saying that it is pointless because she would have done it anyways, regardless of what Kyon's intentions were. While they're talking, Kyon walks up close to her, and then he turns. He calls her, and she looks at him, and he says, "I'm sorry." It is not said what he is apologizing for not realizing how she was feeling sooner, for maybe not giving her enough attention, or just always leaving her in the background, or maybe for relying on her too much, but probably for all of the things that he's put her through, and things that he just hasn't noticed, but that he should have, and that as a good friend he should have, and that it caused her to do all of that. Nagato's reaction is to look down, and here Kyon says, "Yuki." It means snow, doesn't it? This is the first time he's ever called her by her first name. She lifts her head again, and she sees the snow. It starts snowing. The music is great. The music that's playing, it's been playing throughout this whole video, and I think it's my favorite track of the movie, even though the movie has a lot of great ones, but I think this one hits me the most powerful, and it wouldn't hit me as powerful because of this scene. Music has always helped increase how a scene hits you, and this one accompanies this scene perfectly. Sound of the piano while the beautiful animation of Nagato lifting her hands to feel the snow. It doesn't show her eyes. I'm guessing she's feeling a lot of guilt in this scene for what she did, for malfunctioning, quote unquote. She leaves her hand up like that, feeling the snow for a little while before putting them back down. And she tells Kyon that options for her punishment are being examined. The data integration system or whatever that is in charge of Nagato is gonna be doing a punishment to her for what she did, for her quote unquote malfunction. Kyon snaps at this. He doesn't like this idea. He grabs her hand and starts saying if anything were to happen to her, that he will do anything to bring her back. That he will tell Haruhi everything, and he will use Haruhi to make this a world where Nagato's here and the data integration system isn't. He thinks for a little while about how that will be his trump card up his sleeve. After this, he lets go of her hand and wipes the snow off of her head. He then places the jacket on her and lifts up the hoodie. While he does this, he keeps wondering why this data integration couldn't give Nagato a more complete personality. Why did it have to make her a quiet girl? Why does this have to be a girl that has no friends? Why couldn't she just be popular and be able to have normal conversations with people? Why does she have to be a bookworm that just spends all her time reading books? He's mad at this. He's mad that this is a personality that it decided to give her. That is not fair, that it should have been more, she should have had a more complete one. He takes her hand again and tells her one more time that he would make Haruhi flip the universe just to get her back, and it didn't matter how much it would take. And he starts describing how they would go on this grand adventure just to get Nagato back. Well, in his head at least. He tells He tells her to transmit that, and Nagato does just that. She transmits the message to her superior, and the scene ends with the view of the background and the snow falling, with Nagato saying thank you. And like before, like the I'm sorry, it's not said what she's thanking him for putting the hoodie over her, for treating her normal, for apologizing, for for being willing to do anything to get her back, for just standing up for her, for not being mad at her. And it's just great. This is such a great scene. It is my favorite scene because of the music, the direction, the character interactions, Kyon's thoughts. It's great, and this movie really made me love Nagato more as a character. Before, I just thought her as the Evangelion ripoff, like all the other ones are. But after this, I think she's superior, and she's my favorite of the quiet girl stereotype or cliche in anime. And this movie really takes it home, and I love it. I love this scene. And before I can talk about my how I think of the movie as a whole, I will finish describing what happens after this. After this, it just goes into the usualness. The music that was at the beginning, the main Haruhi theme, the dun 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 dun, dun is back. Like from we went full circle, and here we are again. Everything's happy, everything's back to normal. We are back to hearing Kyon's thoughts about how he's an active defender of the planet now, and his thoughts of how he likes this world better, and how he just wants to rest before he has to go back and fix the actual world, because he still has to go back in time and fix that. But thinking how the world could probably wait for him if he just goes in this party, or for a little longer. But at the very least, it could probably wait for him enough for him to eat some of Haruhi's cooking. The last scene is Kyon thinking this while he walks into the club room. And we cut to the credits. Wow, I love this movie. This movie is the payoff to the show. Without the show, this movie wouldn't work on its own. As a movie in itself, though, it's still amazing in terms of production and just voice acting for both the English and the dub. I heard this in dub, and that is my preference when it comes to Haruhi, just because the MC voice actor, the Kyon voice actor, is just so great. I don't know his name in particular, but he's a prominent dub character, dub voice actor, and he's really good. And just all the voice actors do a really good job, but I love him in particular, and he really did great in this movie, especially on the monologues. To me, that's his voice, that's Kyon's voice. But whatever, the sub is also good. I also did rewatch it in the subs, and subs like always being good. I'm so glad Kyoto Animation handled this movie the way it did, giving it the time it needed, because 3 hours long, and yet it's long, but I didn't exactly feel it. I was invested the whole time. I did feel the length, but I was invested, so I didn't care. I could have gone a bit longer for all I cared, and I would have been there. I would have been with it. I love the character exploration of Kyon and Nagato, because this is their story. I mean, every story is about Kyon, right? To some extent, but this is Kyon and Nagato, and I love them. They're probably my two favorites of this show. It's kind of hard though, because I love all these characters, and it's kind of hard to rank them. And I'm sure if the other ones can receive just as well of a development as this one has. It shows that Kyon, as much as he complains about Haruhi and he complains about everything, that he loves this and he wouldn't want it to change for anything, because he got his chance and he chose not to change it. He chose not to leave the world how Nagato changed it, and he decided to make things go back to normal. Of course, he still complained, because why wouldn't he? This is Kyon we're talking about, but it's like a happiness that he has in this. It's fun, and he loves this, and that's what he wants. I also love that Nagato was the quote-unquote like villain of this. She's the one who did it, and I love that it comes from her character type. I love that it comes from that, and I love the exploration that it was used for that. How this is still a girl, and this is still a person that wants to feel, and a person who got tired of Haruhi's shit and was just like, let me change everything for the better. But it was just great. I love Nagato in this. I think I already made that clear, and I just love this movie. I don't know what else to say. I also want to mention I want to mention again how I really like the way they bring back things that happened in previous episodes. Just things that happened before, and they just bring it back and just add new things to it, and it adds up and it keeps adding up. And I'm sure, if you keep going past this, if you read the light novels, it will keep adding up, which I do plan to do eventually one of these days. But reading light novels is more of like a list right now. I am way too busy with everything else to do it, but I really do want to continue this franchise up to the current place that it is. Um, this movie just shows how great storytelling can be. Like I always keep saying, I just love good writing and I love good storytelling, and it makes all the 100 trashy shows or the 100 trashy stories that you watch be worth it when you find one amazing one thing that you think is a masterpiece, or just something good, a good story, or even a great story. I think the show is great, and I think this movie is close to a masterpiece, like maybe one step under. It's definitely amazing. As of this moment of recording, The Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya stands as my favorite movie based off of a show. The only one that can really compare to it is Load Region of Deja Vu, which is the Steins Gate movie. But apart from like that one, even when you compare it up to that one, it's still above it. And I think I still love this one more than I did love that movie. But it's like my fourth favorite show of all time. And I really didn't want this video to be as long as it did, but it shows in the length of the video of how much I have to say about this. But yeah, the official video ends here. Everything past this will just be me like talking a little bit about the video and all of that, because this took me a while to write. I think I filled like 5 pages, going up to 6 of just this script. And then while I was recording it, I had extra things to say, so I didn't even follow it completely. That always happens though, so it's alright. Now I will be talking, the next big video I do that will probably be even longer than this, or I hope not, because I want them to be shorter, but will be my next movie review, which is my third favorite movie. That being Makia, when the promised flower blooms or something like that. You just search up Makia and you'll find it. I definitely recommend that movie, and I recommend this movie. I will be talking about that one in length in my other one. That will probably take me like a whole other week to actually do the script. But it is what it is. I will have a lot of shorter reviews going out, and I just finished watching the 2 Fate series. I want to do that. I want to talk a little bit about Monogatari. I might do that. I'm not sure though, because I want to talk about it properly. Even though Nisei Monogatari or whatever, the second season isn't the best one in my opinion, I still want to analyze it for what it's worth. But it is what it is. It is Makia when the promised flower blooms. It's from the creator of Anohana, and that will be the next week video that I will be talking about. But until then, I'll drop shorter videos and whatever. Anyways, thank you for listening. Subscribe, leave a comment, tell me what you think about this movie. Tell me if you disagree with anything I said or anything like that. But yeah, thank you for listening, really, and may you have a nice day.